and welcome back. So today's video is really exciting. We are actually going to make our very own sock monkeys from scratch. So I am by no means a professional sock monkey maker, so we're gonna do this together, and we're gonna do this very slowly so that we can do it nice and carefully so that it works out for us the first time, because a lot of work gets put into making a sock monkey. So I'm gonna go over what you're gonna need for this. So you're gonna need a pair of socks. Fuzzy socks work well, but I just have some large regular socks here. They're quite long, which is what you want to get to make a bigger sock monkey. Some thread. I'm going with yellow because there's some yellow in my socks here, so I'm gonna go with that color. Just some pins. You're gonna need a straw or something else that you can use for stuffing. You're gonna need a hand needle, a pen, some scissors, and some felt here. You can get felt like this just at the dollar store. They're really cheap. They're like 75 cents each. And you might notice I have these here. So these are actually little templates that I found on the internet. So these are actually little shapes that we are going to use to make our eyes and our ears. So if you want to have a template, go ahead and just look on Google, and you can just Google sock monkey template and something like this will come up. So as you can see, this is our template for the ears and this is our template for the eyes, but it's a pretty basic shape for both of them. So I think if you were just to free draw them, I think that it would work out perfectly fine for you. Okay, so let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to cut the eyes from the white felt that we have here. So I'm going to take my eyes, and I'm actually following along with instructions myself, so just bear with me. We're going to do this together. We're going to do it very carefully. So I'm just going to trace this template with my pen on my white felt. Yes, so I should mention, for felt, you are going to want to use one sheet of white and one sheet of black. And you really don't need a lot of it, so only one sheet is perfectly fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this out. And I've decided to do this whole sock monkey video with just a hand needle. And that's because I know a lot of people probably don't have sewing machines or know how to use them. So that's why for this video, we are going to do this all by hand. And then I'm gonna use the black just to cut out some small circles for the eyes. I don't have a template for the little eyeballs, but I'm just gonna cut out small circles. So it's best if you just follow along with me. As best you can. So there's one. So that will go on like that. And I'm just gonna cut out another circle. So yeah, like I said, you really don't need a lot of this felt, so just one sheet of each is perfect. And you can use other things for eyes as well. Like if you want to use buttons, that's perfectly fine as well. I'm just using felt because that's what I have. But if you have something like buttons, go ahead and use that. Okay, so I'm just gonna put this aside here. I will sew these together afterwards. Okay, So the first thing we need to do is turn both of our socks inside out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna move my stuff to the side here. So you are gonna need a pair of socks here. You can't just use one, you are gonna need a pair of socks. So if you have a iron that you can flatten this with, definitely do that. It will help when it comes to the sewing part. But if not, like I don't have one, if not, just try and press it down as nice as possible. So there's one, and I'm just gonna turn the other one inside out here. Okay, just like that. And again, I'm just gonna flatten it here. As best you can if you don't have an iron. Okay. So there's our socks. So one of these socks is going to be our actual sock monkey, and the other one is going to be for our legs and arms and ears and mouth. So choose a sock. It doesn't matter which sock. One of them is going to be your actual monkey. Whichever one you choose to be your actual monkey, you're going to flatten it kind of like this, kind of backwards. So there's the sock. You're just gonna flatten it nice and straight. So if this doesn't make sense, just compare it with this one. See what we did here? We just flipped it and then flattened it. That's what we did. So that's what you want for your actual sock monkey. Okay. So looking at this sock here, this is going to be used for our tail, our arms, our ears, and our mouth. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut out those shapes. So if you want to use a pen for this, you absolutely can. One thing that I will say is that it might be difficult to draw with a pen on your sock here, but if you can see it slightly, then that's better than nothing. So for the tail, I'm gonna take my pen and we're gonna go this pink here, this pink end, that's for the mouth. So I'm not gonna cut past that. So for the tail, I'm just gonna draw a line. So I can kind of see where I've drawn this line. As long as you can kind of see where you've drawn it, then that's what matters. And your tail is basically just gonna wrap all the way around like that. And we're gonna stop here. Okay. So something that you can do is you can actually sew beforehand or ahead of time if you want. I am going to sew everything after I cut it out because I find that that's a little bit easier for me to do. So let's go ahead and cut out our tail to start. So again, bottom of the sock here, I'm just going to cut round. So we want to make this round, and I'm just going to kind of follow the line that I just drew. But basically, I mean, you can do this without a line. It's a pretty basic shape. We're just going to cut kind of close to the end of the sock here, close to the edge. As you can see, I'm only like a a centimeter away from the edge. And then you're gonna stop as soon as you get to the mouth. And then you're gonna cut the tail off. Okay. So this is going to be our tail that we are going to have to sew afterwards. We're going to sew it together. So I'm just going to put this aside. Okay, for the arms, again, pretty basic, except for the arms, we're going to stop here at this part of the pink. So where your heel would go and where your toes would go, that's where we're going to stop our cutting for these. Okay, so I'm just gonna start across here. Okay, so I'm just gonna actually draw a little line here that I can see. And we're just gonna stop there. I'm just gonna draw a little circle here so I can see. Okay, that's better. I'm just gonna cut up. And I'm gonna stop. And then I'm going to cut around on the bottom. And up. Okay. So there's one of our arms. Again, we need to sew these together. So as of right now, they don't look like much, but that's because we have a lot of sewing to do. So if you can picture what it's gonna look like, these edges are gonna be sewn together, and then we're gonna stuff them. So there's one arm. I know it's a little bit difficult to envision it right now, but it will work out quite nicely. So now for the next arm, I'm actually just gonna start from the side of the sock. I kind of just went around the bottom. And then I'm going up. Okay. It's nice when you have the edges because one side is already closed for you, whereas with the middle, you have to sew those by hand. Okay, so these are gonna be our arms. And then we're gonna cut the ears and the mouth. So the mouth is pretty simple. We're just gonna cut off the part where your toes would be. So that's gonna be our mouth. As soon as we turn it inside out, that's gonna be our mouth. But we still have to sew and stuff that. And then the ears are going to be right up here. So I'm going to use my ear template just to place it there. And I'm going to cut around it. When working with fabric, there's a lot of wiggle room when it comes to shapes, so don't worry too much if your shape isn't perfect. So there's one ear, and then the other ear. And you can pretty much cut out your ear in any part of the sock that's left. Just cutting around my shapes here. Okay, so there's my other ear. Okay, so we're done with this sock here. We've pretty much used all those parts. Now we are gonna do a lot of sewing. We are going to start sewing our ears and our arms and our tail before we continue. So what I need you to do is grab your hand sewing needle and whatever color thread you'd like to use, and then come back and we'll start sewing. Okay, so hopefully you've grabbed your hand sewing needle and some thread. So we're gonna start sewing these pieces together. And when you sew these together, we're gonna sew them inside out, and then we are going to turn them in the right way. So we're gonna sew them inside out, and then we're gonna turn them back to the right side. So right here, I have the tail, and this is gonna be the trickiest part for you to sew. So I figured we could start with the tricky part. You're gonna need to use pins to hold it all together, because if you were to use no pins, it would be really difficult for you to be able to sew. So just pin it like that. And then when we thread our needle, we're gonna need a lot of thread. So I'm just going to pull a lot of thread here. I'm gonna cut it. And when we thread a hand sewing needle, you'll see there's a large gap. You're gonna wanna put one side of your thread through, pull it until the ends of your string meet. I'll show you in just a second. So for example, I'm just gonna show you here what I have. Perfect. So until your ends meet. So until they're about there, okay? So now we have like a double thread through here. So let's start with the end of the tail. So I'm just gonna stick my needle through, pull through as much as I can. I'm gonna leave some hanging because that's gonna be my end. I'm gonna stick the needle in exactly where I just put that one through, and I'm just gonna double knot it there. Okay, so now that we have our start ready, let's sew this whole thing closed. And it's not gonna look like much to start with, but as soon as we turn it inside out, it's gonna really start to come together. So with hand needling, the smaller you go, the smaller your stitches, I guess you could say the better. The easier it's gonna hold together. But, whoops, I got my tail in here. But if bigger stitches are easier for you to use, that's perfectly fine. Just be aware that it might not hold as well as smaller stitches. So this is where it's gonna take a while to stitch all these little pieces together. That's why so many people, when making sock monkeys, they use a sewing machine, because it's much faster. And it always looks a little bit cleaner, I guess you could say. But like I said, not many people have sewing machines, so we're doing it all by hand. Careful you don't get that tail in there like I have a couple times. And then as you go, you can remove the stitches, or sorry, you can remove the pins. So I'm going to remove that one. And you're probably going to need to rethread your needle a couple times. Just try and focus on sewing as close to the edge as possible together. So I'd say my stitching is probably medium sized here. It's not as small as what a sewing machine could get, but it's still relatively small. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing, but just keep sewing the edges together. We're actually almost done the tail. Just a little bit more to go. The tricky part is actually going to be turning the tail inside out because it's so long, but that's why I recommend getting a straw so that you can do that a little bit easier. If you have a sewing machine and you're really comfortable using it, all of these things that I'm doing by hand, you can actually just do with your sewing machine. If that's what you're comfortable with, absolutely. We're almost there, so don't forget everything that we are sewing closed right now, you need to leave an opening so that we can stuff them and turn them inside out. got myself tangled there. Yeah, so as you can see, if I didn't have the pins in, it would be really difficult to sew. And just keep in mind, if you're to do this with a sewing machine, it does look cleaner. And when I say cleaner, it just, the lines are obviously more straight. The stitching is consistent. When you're doing it by hand, it's a little bit more difficult to get a perfect stitch. Okay, we're almost done here. One of my pins just came loose, so I'm going to secure it here. All right, almost there. And then you're gonna do the same things, the same thing with the arms. Whoops, I got myself tangled again. There. We're at the final stretch here. Okay. So remember to leave an opening at the very top so that you're able to turn it inside out and put stuffing inside. So I'm just gonna kind of double knot here. Which just means I'm gonna stitch in the same spot a few times. And then I'm gonna cut my string. Okay, so we've sewn our tail. Now the difficult part here is we have to actually turn it inside out. And this is where you're gonna have to use a straw, and you're gonna have to do it just the best you can. So kind of start pushing your tail through the opening slowly, and after a while you should be able to get it to turn completely inside out. So I'm gonna let you do that, and once you have it inside out, come right back. Okay, so you should have been able to pull your tail through to get it inside out like that. It took me a while, but I was able to do it, so I'm just gonna put that aside. So now it's time to sew our arms and our ears together. So pretty much the exact same thing as we did with the tail. This top part here, this bottom part, is gonna be our opening. So again, I'm gonna go through one spot, pull almost all the way through, but not quite. Go through the same spot. Try not to hook it on any of your pins. I've pinned it all together so that it's easy to sew. Okay, and now we can start sewing. So just keep sewing like this until you get all the way to the end here, and make sure you leave a gap. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I will check in with you guys as soon as I'm done. Okay, so I'm almost done sewing the arm here. Remember to leave a gap. I keep doing that. Make sure you leave a space so that you can turn it inside out. And you're gonna do this for both arms. So I'm not gonna show you how to do the second arm because it's the exact same process. So everything inside out, and then you turn it back around. So I'm just gonna double knot here, sew in the same spot a few times, snip it. Okay, so the arms should be easier to turn inside out because they're a little bit larger than the tail. So go ahead and take your straw and just start pulling it through. You can use your scissors as well, as long as they're not too sharp. A metal straw would work really well for this. My plastic straw is kind of bending a little bit here. But just keep pulling it through like that. I've almost got it all the way through here. If you would rather not have to deal with turning these inside out again, you can sew them together like correctly, right side to right side, but you won't get as clean lines as you would if you did this. See, what I mean by that is you can't see my stitching. Whereas if you were to sew them together like this, you would be able to see the stitching. However, because this arm is going to be a little bit smaller than my other arm, I might just sew it together like this, as long as you leave a little room for stuffing, and then that's fine. So go ahead and sew your other arm. If you need to pause the video, you can go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go ahead and start on the ears. So again, inside out, so right side to right side like that. And on this straight part here, I'm going to leave open because we are going to turn the ears inside out, and we're going to stuff the ears as well. So the ears are a bit smaller, so they should be a little bit easier and faster to do. So if you need to pause the video to get caught up, please do so. And then as soon as you're done sewing together both arms, start working on the ears. And then we're gonna start working on the body of the monkey. There's a little bit more sewing that we have to do there as well. But once you're done all of the sewing, then we get to stuff it, which will be lots of fun. All right, so keep sewing your arms and your ears. Once you're done, come back. So now it's time to work on the actual body of the sock monkey. So what we're gonna do is, it's very simple. We're gonna cut straight up here, and we're gonna end about right here, okay? So I'm making a mark for myself so I know. And then in order to shape the legs, we're actually going to cut slightly in a half circle down here, just kind of before the bottoms here. You'll see it'll be very, very simple to make it kind of like we did the arms. So just take your scissors and we're going to cut straight up. Try and be as precise as possible. Okay. And see, I don't want little square legs at the bottom here. So that's what I mean. I'm gonna take these and round them off at the bottom. Just like that. So I'm going to do that on both sides. Okay. Now you're going to want to thread your needle again, and we're going to start sewing together the legs. So I'm going to put a couple pins in here for myself, just so that the legs don't move too much as I'm sewing them. And for the legs, I'm probably going to do slightly bigger stitches than I did for the arms and the tails. Sorry, the arms and the tail. So I'm just gonna put a few pins in just like that. And now we're gonna start sewing these together. So again, in the one spot, I'm just gonna sew in the same spot a couple times. And this is kind of like our starter stitch. So you wanna do this every time before you continue sewing so that your stitch doesn't come loose. Okay, so I've just sewn in the same spot a couple times. I'm just going to turn it this way here, and now I'm going to start sewing. So again, if you don't really know exactly how I'm sewing this, I am just going down through and up through. Down and up. Very, very simple. Down and up. And yes, we are going to be turning this inside out as soon as we're done sewing it. And then we are going to start stuffing and then putting on the final touches. So if this is your first ever sock monkey, please don't worry too much about how it looks. These are very complicated to make. They're not easy. Even for me, they're not easy. So don't feel too disappointed if you're not happy with how it turned out at the end. There's always, always time to make more. Okay, so I'm about halfway down the first leg. I'm just gonna remove the pins that were at the bottom here. Don't need those anymore. pins are always a good idea just to keep everything in place. So yeah, I'm just going down through both layers and then back up a little bit higher than the stitch. And like I said, you can absolutely sew these not inside out. The reason that we're doing this and sewing it inside out is so that we have really nice clean stitches, and you can't really see the stitching much if you put it inside out. For one of my monkey arms, I had to sew it not inside out because it was it was a bit smaller than my other arm. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave a little hole here. So I'm just gonna stitch in the same spot a couple times to make sure my stitches aren't going anywhere. Perfect. I'm gonna cut this off. And now I'm going to start on the other leg. So again, I'm just gonna pin this together. So the reason fuzzy socks, so I'm not using fuzzy socks for this right now, but fuzzy socks work the best for this. And I say that because with fuzzy socks, you can hardly see the stitching at all because the socks are so fuzzy. So if you have fuzzy socks, definitely use those next time. Okay, so down and up. Almost the whole way. Perfect. And now we're just going to keep stitching. I'm probably going to need to rethread my needle after a few stitches here. So yeah, I'm doing slightly bigger stitches, but not big enough that if I had stuffing in it, that the stuffing would come out of these stitches. Okay, so I'm just going to sew in the same spot a couple times because I need to rethread my needle. So again, I'm just going to take quite a long piece of sewing string here. If you can't remember how to rethread a needle, I'll show you again. So one piece through the hole, pull through until the ends of both strings meet. Perfect. And it's as simple as that. So let's keep going. I'm going to sew in the same spot a couple times. Whenever you rethread a needle, you have to sew in the same spot a couple times. Otherwise, if you just try and keep stitching without doing this, your string is going to move and it won't stay. this pin here. So I just kind of remove pins as I go. It'll be really nice once we can start stuffing it, because then I think you're going to be able to see it all come together. You can use any kind of stuffing you want. Toy stuffing is ideal. They sell it at Fabricland in Chilliwack. And if there's a Fabricland in Abbotsford, if you're from Abbotsford, I'm sure there's a Fabricland in Abbotsford that you can buy it from, or Michael's in Abbotsford would have it as well. But I'm from Chilliwack, and I just bought my stuffing from the Fabricland in Chilliwack. I just bought the smallest bag, and it was about $12. But that would last you a lot of sock monkeys, because the smallest bag is still quite large. Okay, we're almost done here. Don't forget to leave a hole on the bottom so that you can turn it inside out and stuff it. Okay, so I'm just going to stitch in the same spot a couple times. Okay, I'm gonna snip it. All right, so now once you've sewn the legs, we're actually going to turn the entire thing inside out. Do this gently so that you're not ripping any stitches, but if you do, it's fine. We're going to be stitching up the hole after anyways, so don't be too worried if anything does happen, if you didn't leave a big enough hole. Okay, so there's one leg. So now you can really see what I mean by when we sew it inside out and then turn it inside out, you can't even see my stitches. So that's why it's so nice to be able to do that. So there's one leg. And here's the other leg. So now you have to turn the whole body inside out. So yes, we're gonna have to turn the entire thing inside out now after you've done the legs. Okay, here we are. So it doesn't look like much now, but once we start stuffing it and adding our arms, our legs, our tails, our mouth, our ears, it's really going to come together. Okay, so I'm just gonna pause the video for a second. What I need you to do is grab your stuffing. So go ahead and grab your stuffing, get your stuffing ready, and then grab your ears, your arms, and your monkey tail, as well as the mouth and the eyes, and then come back. Okay, so my stuffing here is just to the side, and we are going to start stuffing this monkey. So, I hope you have a straw or a pen or something handy, because you're going to need it in order to stuff this. You could do it without, but it would be kind of tricky. So you're just going to use that hole and you're just going to start pushing through some stuffing. And as you can see here, I'm just using like my straw to kind of push all the way to the ends. But you're really going to need that straw when it comes to the arms and maybe the legs here, depending how big your legs ended up being. So just keep stuffing it and kind of just stuff it until you're happy with how it looks. Make sure you have your hand needle and thread handy, because we're still going to need that, because as soon as we're done stuffing this monkey, we're going to sew it closed. So my monkey legs are quite wide, so I don't think I'm going to need the straw for mine. But just to even it out a little bit, push it down a bit. Okay, almost there. Almost done. Again, stuff it as much or as little as you want. You can kind of adjust the filling when it's in there to get it how you want it. A little bit more. Okay, gonna make sure I stuff the back. Okay, so I think that's as much as I'm gonna stuff it. So now I need you to grab your thread and we need to sew this part closed. So we're gonna use little stitches for this. Again, so in the same spot a couple times so your string doesn't come loose. And try your best to use as small of stitches as you can. so that it's not really noticeable. It shouldn't be noticeable once your monkey is sitting up because it's kind of at the bottom. So it shouldn't be that noticeable. So yeah, don't worry too much if it looks super noticeable. When your monkey is sitting upright, you shouldn't be able to see this part. And this part you have to do by hand, even if you do have a sewing machine. So it's good that we've got our practice in. Almost done here. I'm still using yellow string just because I think it's a nice contrast. But I'm going to be using black string when I sew on the eyes. Okay, down to my last few stitches here. Okay, I'm going to sew in the same spot a couple times near the end. And then I'm going to cut my string. There we are. And you can kind of mold it, shape it the way you want it. So as you can see, it's kind of going to be sitting kind of upright like this. So you won't really be able to see these strings anyways. So now I'm just going to put this aside. So we're going to start to work on some of the small details. So I'm just going to grab the eyes here. And I'm going to put in black string into my sewing needle here because I don't want yellow string on my eyes. But you don't need a lot, so we don't need as much as we were using for the yellow string. But if you have buttons or something, that would actually be really, really cute if you used buttons instead or something like that for the eyes. I think that would look really nice. Okay, so I'm just going to hold the eye in place, and I'm just going to go down and up, kind of exactly like we did for the like actual monkey. It's tricky because it's so small. Oops. Have to rethread my needle there. Okay, so I'm going to go down, through, and up. Okay, so it's quite thick. So if you're using felt, just be aware of that. Up and down. Okay, perfect. There we go. I'm just gonna do it one last time to make sure my eye is secure. Perfect. And then I'm just going to cut the strings so that I cannot see them. Okay. Now we have the second eye. Same thing, down and up through. And then I'm going to do it another time here. Once you go through once, it's easier to go through the second and third time you do it. Perfect. Awesome. And I'm just going to cut the strings. Again, if you have buttons or something, that would work really well here. That would be really cute. Perfect. So those are my eyes. My eyes are at least sewn on now. Awesome. Now, go ahead and put the string that you were using for your monkey into your needle here. So I was using yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and put yellow back in. And now we're going to grab our monkey ears and our monkey arms and our monkey tail. So when I did my tail, what I noticed is my tail actually, it doesn't need stuffing because as soon as I put it inside out, it's quite thick. So I'm just going to put that aside for now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the ears. So I'm going to put the tiniest bit of stuffing in the ears, but you might actually not need to. For what we're doing, you might not need to, so it's kind of up to you. So I've put a little bit of stuffing in there and we're just going to sew it closed. Oops, there we go. I'm just going to cut my strings here on the one side. I'm just going to sew this closed. And then we're going to do a really nice little detail on the ears as well. To make them look more like ears. Okay, so now that you've sewn your ear closed, you're actually going to push it together like that. See how it makes a little crease here? That's what we want. So I'm gonna hold it tight and then I'm gonna stitch it together. So I'm basically stitching both ends of the ear together to keep that crease. Just like that. And then I'm going to snip. I'm going to snip the strings from my sock here. So now we have a little ear with a little crease, and that's what I wanted. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other ear. I'm using literally the tiniest bit of stuffing. You probably don't even need to use stuffing for the ears because they're just so small and they would work if you didn't have stuffing. So exact same thing. Just gonna sew it closed. Oops, I have to do that again. Sew it in the same spot a couple times. Okay, and we're gonna push it together, ends together. And we're gonna stitch a couple times to get that little crease. And then I'm going to snip it. I'm gonna snip this part too that I can see. And there we are, another little ear with a little crease. Okay, now we're gonna work on the arms. So this is where you're gonna need a straw. And again, like with the arms, they are so skinny that you actually may not even need to stuff them. So mine turned out much skinnier than what I thought they would be. So I'm gonna try and stuff mine, but it may not work because they are already just so small. But what you can do is, if you have arms that are about the size of your legs, that would be very easy to stuff, go ahead and stuff them. Otherwise, if you have something like what I have, which is quite skinny, you can just leave it like this if you'd like. So go ahead and stuff your arms and then sew them closed exactly like we did with the ears. Okay, so once your arms are stuffed, we are going to start attaching our arms, tail, and mouth to the monkey. So go ahead and finish up your stuffing of the arms and sewing of the arms, and then come back. Okay, so you should have your ears, your arms, and your tail kind of sewn and sewn together as well. So we're gonna start working on attaching our ears, our mouth, and our eyes, and then we're gonna go into the legs and arms. So I'm just gonna rethread my needle here. Okay. And now I'm just gonna place my eyes right so that they're touching the top part of the sock. And I'm gonna use my yellow thread, and you can do big stitches for this. Oops, my ends aren't connecting, so there we go. Easy little fix. I'm gonna go in, up, in, up, at the same spot to secure it. Down, up. I'm doing big stitches here. Okay, almost done. One more. And I'm just going to stitch down here to secure it, and then cut my string. Okay, so now it's time to attach our mouth. So you should have this little piece put aside from when we were cutting our socks. So place it kind of as you wish, right below your eyes. And I'm gonna use pins to keep this in as I sew. I'm just gonna stick the pins in just like that. And then we're gonna leave a little hole on the one side so that we can stuff it when we're done. So I'm just gonna start down up here. I'm just gonna start up here, and I'm gonna do again probably large stitches. Oopsie. I'll have to fix my eye after. That's no problem. Okay, so I can take my first pin out. I'm going to take my second pin out. Just going to turn this around. So it's finally starting to look like a monkey. Take this pin out. Take the last pin out. Okay, so I'm just going to sew in the same spot twice, cut it, and now we're going to take a little bit of stuffing here and we're going to stuff our mouth of our monkey. And just kind of stuff it until you are happy with it. I'm probably going to put quite a bit of stuffing in here, as much as I can fit. All right. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit more in. These are really stretchy socks that I'm using, so they could fit a lot of stuffing. All right, once you're done stuffing it, you're just gonna actually sew this all together now to the sock. But I'm going to fix my little eye here right after I do that. Honestly, if you're having a hard time using felt for the eyes, you could also put a tiny bit of hot glue on the back and it would probably work out well. Okay. So I'm just going to start where I finished last. All right, I'm back to where I started, so I'm just going to double stitch. cut it off. Cut off the strings where I started. Okay, and I'm just gonna kind of move my stuffing here. All right, so I am going to fix my little eye here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to attach the tail, and then I'm going to let you finish attaching the rest of the little pieces here that we need to add, and then we'll be pretty much done. So I'll be right back to show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to attach the ears, and then the process that we're going to use to attach the ears is pretty much the same as how we would attach the arms and the tail. So as soon as I show you how to attach the ears, I'm going to let you finish the rest. So go ahead and place the ears where you want them to. I like them having kind of in the middle between the eyes and the mouth. And you might need to just pin it down in the spot you want. And then just very carefully, you're going to make a couple stitches that hold it in place. And this is the same process for the tail and the arms. You're pretty much just placing it and then making a few stitches so that it is in the place that you want it. So I'm just going to do a couple stitches from down here. Okay. So I'm gonna cut my strings, remove my pin, cut my strings again, and there we are. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get you to finish off adding in the ears and the tail and the arms. And then I want to show you something as well that you can do with the mouth. So this is totally optional, but I think it's really nice when you make some stitches going through the mouth. So for example, I'm stitching through here, I'm going back, stitching again, and then I'm just going to keep back stitching, and what I mean by that is I'm going to just keep going back over the stitch previous to that stitch. And it kind of, this will act as kind of like a mouth for the monkey. This is totally optional. You don't have to do this. It's just something I see on a lot of sock monkeys. So I figured that I would go ahead and give it a try. Just keep stitching back so that you get that stitch. Last one. I'm just gonna sew it again in the same spot to secure it, and then cut my strings. Okay, so it just acts like a little detail for the monkey mouth. So yeah, go ahead and add in your other ear, your arms, and your tail, and then I will show you a finished product of mine. Please send me pictures of your sock monkeys. I would love to see them. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.